This time, we're going to be looking at the fall of the Qin Dynasty and the rise of the Han Dynasty. Should be pretty exciting to kind of go through this tumultuous period. You know, a lot of twists and turns, a lot of different players vying for power.
Yeah, a lot of interesting parallels I think we can draw to even challenges that we face today in terms of decision making, with all the complexities of the world today. So I think this will be a really fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, I'm excited to jump in. So our first source kind of sets the stage, after the Qin unified China, right? It's easy to think that everything just settled down, but that's not what happened at all.
Not at all. The Qin, they achieved unification, which is a huge, accomplishment, but then they made some pretty critical errors that, well, really kind of led to their downfall.
Like what?
Well, one of the biggest ones was how they dealt with the conquered Shu people. They really alienated them, especially the aristocracy, didn't really try to integrate them into the new power structure or anything like that.
Interesting. So they basically just ignored this huge part of the population that they had just conquered.
Pretty much.
Wow.
And instead of trying to win them over or, appease them in some way, they focused on these massive construction projects. The Great Wall, of course, is, the most famous example.
Yeah.
Those projects, they were impressive, sure, but they also put a huge burden on the people. Lots of taxes, forced labor, that kind of thing.
So it backfired.
Yeah.
Meant to show their strength, but ended up just making people resent them even more.
Exactly. And another thing they really missed out on was propaganda.
How so?
Well, think about it. They could have really demonized the previous Chu rulers, paint them as tyrannical, extravagant, but they didn't really do that.
Huh. Would have been a pretty effective way to control the narrative.
Absolutely. But instead, the Qin, through their actions, kind of ended up making the former Chu rulers look good by comparison.
Oh, wow. Talk about unintended consequences. I mean,
Yeah.
they basically created the perfect breeding ground for a rebellion.
Yeah, they did. And that brings us to Xiang Liang, a very shrewd figure who saw this as his chance.
Yeah, Xiang Liang, he seems to have been a master at reading the political landscape and seizing the opportunity.
Oh, yeah. He really understood the power of symbolism. To get the Chu people on his side, he needed someone who could represent their hope for a restored Chu. And he found that person, believe it or not, herding sheep.
A shepherd. Seriously.
Yeah, Shangxin's. Turns out he was the grandson of the previous King Wai of Chu, the ruler who was super respected and beloved even after his death.
Okay, so I'm seeing the connection here. Xiang Liang uses Shangxin to tap into that nostalgia for the good old days. Clever.
Super clever. It was a stroke of genius, really. Gave the rebellion instant legitimacy. But they were even more deliberate than that. They didn't just give Zhang Jin some new title, they proclaimed him King Wai of Chu.
So they used the exact same name as his grandfather. That's not a coincidence, is it?
Not at all. It was all about evoking those memories of the previous King Wai's reign. A brilliant propaganda move, playing on that longing for the past.
Oh yeah, really smart. Makes you wonder, though, what was going through Xianxin's mind? I mean, going from sheep herder to king, that's got to be a wild ride.
I know, right? Talk
Yeah.
about a career change. But that's what I love about history, those unpredictable twists and turns. While Xiang Liang and King Huai were getting set up, other players were starting to make their moves against the Qin too.
Right, people like Zhang Liang. Driven by revenge, his whole family was wiped out by the Qin. He ends up joining Xiang Liang, but you get the sense he's got his own plans as well.
Oh, absolutely. Zhang Liang is fascinating. He wants revenge, sure, but he's also a brilliant strategist. He sees the bigger picture, overthrowing the Qin. That's just the first step. He advises Xiang Liang to set up a Han state right alongside the Chu.
Interesting. So on the surface, it looks like he's just trying to strengthen the anti-Qin forces, but there's more to it than that.
Right. That move is all about setting the stage for the Han Dynasty to make a comeback.
So he's playing a long game, very long game.
Exactly. And then you have people like Liu Bang and Yingbu. They're joining the rebellion too, but their motives seem a little, well, less idealistic.
More opportunistic, you mean?
Yeah. They see the Qin losing power and they sense an opportunity for themselves, maybe to grab some power, improve their position.
Yeah, a theme we see a lot in these sources. It's not always about grand ideals. Self-interest plays a huge role, too.
Huge role. And all of these ambitions, these fragile alliances, they're about to be put to the test in a major battle, the Battle of Linji. This one's a turning point, a real turning point.
Yeah, it seems like the anti-Qin coalition, they had a lot going for them at first. Home field advantage, experienced commanders, and they seem pretty united in their goal.
Right, you'd think they'd have the upper hand, but then they run into Zhang Han, the Qin general. He's a tough opponent, really smart.
So what happened? How did they lose?
Well, Zhang Han, he used these really innovative tactics. He was inspired by this ancient military text called Six Secret Teachings. Think surprise nighttime attacks, that kind of thing.
Wow, so he caught them completely off guard.
Yeah. The coalition suffered heavy losses, lost some key commanders, and shortly after, the Wei state falls to the Qin. Big setback for the rebellion.
And you mentioned something earlier about this gagging tactic. That sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, it's this fascinating example of how they used ancient rituals in warfare. The Qin soldiers were literally gagged to keep them silent during these night attacks. Talk about discipline.
Wow, that's incredible. And in the midst of all this, we have the king of Wei Ju. He makes this incredibly tragic, but also very defiant choice.
Right. He negotiates a surrender to save his people, but then he sets himself on fire. A powerful statement, showing his resistance to the Qin even in defeat.
Yeah, definitely a poignant moment. Shows the human cost of this conflict. So we have the Wei state falling, the main Chu forces reeling from their loss at Linji. And as if things weren't complicated enough, there's another power struggle brewing in the Qi state.
Yeah, things are definitely about to get even more tangled. So you've got this power vacuum, right? Xiang Liang's gone, and the Qin are still a huge threat. Who's going to step up and lead the rebellion?
It really is kind of like, I don't know, like a chess game. You take out this major piece, and suddenly everyone's going to figure out a whole new strategy.
Exactly. And in this case, it's King Y of Chu, who'd kind of been, a figurehead up until now. He seizes the moment, moves his capital to Pengcheng, which is a strategically important city, and takes direct control of the armies, merges Zhang Yu's forces with another general, Liu Chen.
So while the rebellion is kind of reeling from those setbacks, King Y is actually consolidating his power. Pretty smart move. But the Qin army, they're still out there, right? Zhang Han, he's still a major threat.
Oh, yeah. Zhang Han, after that victory at Linji, he decides to focus on the Zhao state to the north. Figures the Chu forces are too disorganized, not an immediate danger, so he sees an opportunity to take out another key player in the rebellion.
I see. So if the Zhao falls, that's a huge blow to the whole anti-Qin movement.
Absolutely. King Huai knows he has to act fast, so he does something pretty bold. He appoints Song Yu, a veteran general, to lead the main Chu army north, their mission, relieve the Zhao.
Okay, so that's one front.
Right. But at the same time, he sends Liu Bang on a separate campaign westward. The goal: strike at the Qin heartland.
The classic pincer move. Stretch those Qin forces thin, create some chaos, open up opportunities.
Exactly. But here's where it gets even more interesting. King Huai makes this kind of audacious promise to his generals.
What kind of promise?
He says, whoever captures the Qin capital first, Guanzhong, gets to be king.
Whoa, that's putting a lot on the line. It's not just about fighting for a cause anymore. Now it's a race for the throne.
Yeah. Risky move, but brilliant. Adds this whole new level of ambition to the conflict. So now you've got these two armies on the move, each with a critical mission, and the ultimate prize dangling in front of them.
Okay, so let's talk about Song Yi first. He's got the tough task of saving the Zhao.
Right, Song Yi. He was experienced, but also known for being cautious, maybe even a little too cautious. He marches his army north, gets to Anyang, and then stops.
He stops, just like that, with the Zhao about to fall.
Yeah, for 46 days. Can you believe that?
46 days. That's a long time to just sit around while your allies are getting crushed. What was he thinking?
Well, his logic was let the Qin and the Zhao wear each other down, conserve his strength, then swoop in when the moment is right.
It's a strategy, I guess. But it's also kind of risky, isn't it? Putting all your eggs in one basket like that.
Definitely risky. And you can imagine how the Zhao felt, watching the Chu army just sitting there while they're getting hammered by the Qin.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too happy about that. And I bet Song Yi's own troops weren't too thrilled either.
You're right. This delay really did not sit well with Zhang Yu. He's young, ambitious, eager to prove himself. Sees Song Yi's inaction as cowardice.
So the tension's building. You've got these two strong personalities, two very different approaches. I'm guessing this doesn't end well.
It doesn't. Zhang Yu, in a move that would kind of define his legacy, goes into Song Yi's tent and kills him.
He killed him. That's a bold move, to say the least. What happened next? Did the whole army just fall apart?
No, actually. Zhang Yu, he's a master manipulator. He tells the army that Song Yu is a traitor, secretly working with the Qi state against the Chu, claims he acted on King Huai's orders to eliminate the threat.
Wow, so he spins the whole thing and makes himself look like the arrow?
Exactly, and it works. Many of the soldiers, they were already frustrated with Song Yu, so they're kind of ready to believe Shan Yu. He's decisive, he's a strong leader. He steps right into that leadership void.
So he turns this potential mutiny into a power grab. King Huai must have been furious.
Oh yeah, furious, but what could he do? Zhang Yu now has the army on his side, so King Huai basically has to just accept it, officially names him the new supreme commander.
So Xiang Yu's star is on the rise. And with him in charge, how does he try to save the Zhao? Because that's still a pretty dire situation.
Well, it's Shan Yu, so of course he does something dramatic. He leads the army across the Zhangshui River, but before they cross, get this, he orders all the boats to be sunk, cooking pots smashed, tells his soldiers to take only 3 days worth of rations.
He's not messing around.
Nope, it's a message, right? No retreat, no surrender, victory or death.
A bold statement for sure. What was the reaction from the troops?
It worked. They were inspired by his commitment, his willingness to share in their hardships. They saw him as a leader worth fighting for.
And this is where we get to the famous Battle of Julu, right? One of the most decisive battles in Chinese history.
Yeah, the Qin army, led by Zhang Han and Wang Li, they'd surrounded the Zhao forces at Julu, cutting off supplies, basically waiting for them to starve. It was a desperate situation. But then Shang Yu arrives.
And everything changes. It's like a clash of the titans, right?
Yeah,
The fate of the rebellion hanging in the balance.
absolutely. And Xiang Yu, he doesn't disappoint. He launches these relentless attacks, breaks through the Qin lines. He's fighting like a man possessed, leading the charge, inspiring his troops to acts of incredible bravery.
So despite being outnumbered, they actually win.
They do. Julu was a major turning point. The Zhao were saved, the Qin suffered a huge loss, and Zhang Yu's reputation, as this brilliant, almost mythical military commander was solidified.
Amazing. But meanwhile, what's Liu Bang up to? He's been pretty quiet this whole time.
Liu Bang, he's been busy too, making steady progress on his westward campaign. But his approach, it's a lot different than Zhang Yu's.
How so?
Well, Zhang Yu's all about military might, decisive action. Liu Bang, he's more measured, more adaptable. He's a pragmatist. He'll use diplomacy, strategy, along with force to get what he wants.
So he's playing the long game, thinking several steps ahead. He gets that brute force isn't always the answer.
Right. To win this war, he knew he had to be more than just a warrior. He had to be a politician, a negotiator, a master of taking advantage of any opportunity.
So how did that play out as he's moving westward?
He meets a lot less resistance than Shang Yu. He's really good at exploiting those internal divisions within the Qin ranks, winning over local populations who are sick of Qin rule.
So he's not afraid to negotiate, to form alliances, even make concessions if it helps him in the long run.
Exactly. He's constantly adapting, reading the situation, making calculated decisions. That flexibility, that was key to his success.
Makes sense. So you've got these two very different leaders, Shang Yu, the audacious warrior, and Liu Bang, the cunning strategist, both on the rise, both with their eyes on the prize. It seems like a collision is inevitable.
It is. As the Qin dynasty crumbles, it's not a question of if these two will clash, but when. And that clash, that's going to decide the future of China.
So we left off with Zhang Yu, fresh off his huge victory at Julu and Liu Bang. He's steadily making his way west, using a very different but still very effective approach. And I imagine, with the Qin Dynasty basically on the verge of collapse, that this is where things really start to heat up between these two, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is where that rivalry between Zhang Yu and Liu Bang really comes to a head. Zhang Yu, with his battlefield victories, his aristocratic background, he really saw himself as the rightful heir, the natural leader of the rebellion.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. He'd proven himself on the battlefield time and time again. Plus, he had that, that aura of destiny about him, almost like a legendary figure.
Exactly. He had the charisma, the military skill, the lineage, all of it. But Liu Bang, even though he came from more humble beginnings, he was just as ambitious and a lot more cunning, I would say. He understood that real power, it wasn't just about military strength, it was about political savvy, winning the support of the people.
So it's a clash of styles, a clash of personalities, and they're both racing towards the same goal, control of the empire. Did this rivalry lead to any open conflict between them at this point?
Well, the sources definitely suggest there was growing tension. Shang Yu, he was used to getting his way. He expected people to fall in line. But Liu Bang,
He was too independent, too strategic to just be a follower. He saw those weaknesses in Shang Yu, that arrogance, that impulsiveness, and he was ready to use them to his advantage.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster, especially with so much at stake, the future of China hanging in the balance. So what happened? Did they ever actually, confront each other directly?
Not right away. Liu Bang, he knew that speed was key. He realized if he could get to the Qin capital, Shenyang, before Shang Yu, he'd be in a much stronger position.
Yeah, it makes sense. Whoever took the capital, they'd basically be in control, and they'd have the mandate of heaven on their side, too.
Exactly. The mandate of heaven, that was huge. It gave you the legitimacy to rule the moral authority. So Liu Bang, he sets his sights on Xiang Liang, and he gets there first.
Wow, so he actually beat Shang Yu to the capital. But how did he take control of the city? I mean, the Qin forces, they must have put up some resistance, right?
This is where Liu Bang's political skills really come into play. Instead of attacking, which would have been, a bloody and costly affair, he negotiates. He convinces the Qin officials to surrender peacefully, promises them amnesty, fair treatment if they lay down their arms.
That's brilliant. He avoids a battle, wins over the people, and makes himself look like the merciful leader all at the same time. It's a huge contrast to how Shang Yu would handled it.
Yeah, night and day. And that act of, well, you could call it generosity, it really cemented his reputation as a wise and compassionate leader. But when Shang Yu shows up and finds Liu Bang already in control, he is furious.
I bet he was. After all those victories, to be denied the ultimate prize like that by a rival who took, a less glorious path, that's gotta sting.
Oh, yeah. The sources make it clear that this was a major turning point. The rivalry, it just explodes. And that sets the stage for the Chu-Han contention.
So the alliance, it completely falls apart.
Yeah.
And now it's a war between these two former allies. What can you tell us about this conflict? Was it just one big battle, or was it more complicated than that?
Oh, it was much more complicated. The Chu-Han contention, it went on for years. Lots of battles, shifting alliances. It was a clash of personalities, of ideologies, really a struggle over the future of China.
Sounds incredibly complex. Are there any key moments that really stand out?
Well, one that really illustrates their contrasting styles, it's the feast at Honggate. Shang Yu, he had just defeated Liu Bang's forces in battle. So he invites Liu Bang to this banquet, like a gesture of reconciliation.
Okay, but I'm sensing there's more to it.
Right.
It wasn't just a friendly dinner.
Not at all. It was a trap. Zhang Yu's advisors, they're urging him to just kill Liu Bang right there, get rid of him once and for all.
It's like something out of a movie. So what happened? Did Zhang Yu go through with it?
This is where Liu Bang's quick thinking saves him. He senses the danger, plays on Zhang Yu's ego, and manages to escape. It's a testament to his ability to read people, to think on his feet.
Wow, what a close call. It sounds like Shang Yu, maybe he had a chance to end the rivalry right there, but he hesitated.
Yeah, and some historians say that hesitation, it says a lot about his character. He was a warrior, a man of honor. Assassination, that was beneath him. He probably saw it as, a dishonorable act.
Interesting. So his principles, his code of honor, it may have actually been his downfall. In a world of, ruthless ambition, playing by the rules can be a dangerous game.
It can be. So to answer your earlier question, how did this power struggle end? Well, after years of fighting back and forth, Liu Bang wins.
He wins. So the cunning strategist, he outsmarts the brilliant warrior.
In a way, yeah. He was more adaptable, more resilient. He learned from his mistakes, built stronger alliances, and I think ultimately he connected with the people in a way that Shang Yu just didn't. They were tired of war, they wanted stability, and Liu Bang, he offered them that.
It's a remarkable story. He starts as the underdog, but through his cunning, his pragmatism, and his sheer determination, he ultimately takes the throne.
And that marked the beginning of the Han Dynasty, one of the most significant periods in Chinese history, an era of peace, prosperity, cultural achievement. But it's important to remember, none of this was inevitable. It all came down to the choices, the actions, even the chance events shaped by individuals like Shang Yu and Liu Bang.
It's been a really amazing journey going through all of this. As we wrap up this deep dive, are there any, key takeaways, any lessons that you think our listeners can take away from all of this?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is that leadership, it comes in many forms. You have Shang Yu, the charismatic warrior, and Liu Bang, the pragmatic strategist. They both had leadership qualities, but they approached things very differently. And in the end, it was Liu Bang's adaptability, his willingness to learn and change, that proved more effective.
So there's no one-size-fits-all approach to leadership. You got to be flexible, resourceful, ready to adapt to whatever comes your way. And I think it also shows the importance of building relationships. understanding your opponents, and really knowing how to connect with people.
Absolutely. And I think this deep dive also shows just how powerful individual choices can be. Every decision, every action has consequences. It can set off a chain of events that leads to, well, to unexpected outcomes.
It's a good reminder that history isn't just a story we read in a book. It's the result of countless individual decisions, big and small. And those decisions, they can shape the destiny of nations.
So the next time you're faced with a tough decision, remember what we've learned from the fall of the Qin and the rise of the Han. Be adaptable, be strategic, be bold. You never know how your actions might impact the course of events.
Well said. This has been a fascinating look at a really pivotal moment in history. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we look forward to exploring more sources with you soon.